So, Tracy, it is all nice today, but what about the long term? Is this going to work?
Well, I look at the 76ers as a team. They are trending in the right direction. Involving Jimmy Butler in this trade, I don't think propels them to the first, second, or third seed. I still think
not even the third seed.
No, I still think they're behind Milwaukee, Toronto, and Boston Celtics. However, they got a player that they much needed, and someone who's hard-nosed, plays both ends, can score the ball because they needed another scorer. But my problem is they lost two of their shooters. And this was the problem starting off with this team. I kept harping on, they lost Ilyasova, they lost Bellinelli, Bellinelli. And that's the problem with Philly. They're going to have to go out and add shooting to this team because their bench is not as strong as these other three teams.
Now, the good news for Philly is you just took on one of the best two-way players in the game, Jimmy Butler. That's the strength. That you can go out and do it, Tracy, because they still have draft picks. They still have incredibly cap space. They still have ways that they can improve their team. And that's the only way this whole Jimmy Butler trade makes sense. And I think they will. I think they'll find a way to do it. I would do this instantaneously. I would take Markelle Fultz out of the lineup, and I would put J.J. Redick in the starting lineup with Jimmy Butler to address some of the needs you're talking about. I mean, that has to happen. Right away.
I mean, you've got to think that's where they're going with this. And look, you guys saying the Sixers still need to add more. I thought it was very interesting what Elton Brand said about that in the press conference this morning. And by the way, he didn't mention Carmelo Anthony by name, but there have been some reports that the Sixers might be interested in Melo. And he seemed to shoot that down as well in this little soundbite. Take a listen.
Despite what's been reported, we're going to take our time and evaluate the landscape. We feel that we can actually add an important piece with that roster spot, so we're not in a rush. Nothing's imminent right now, but we think we can use that to do some real damage and help our team.
So, Tracy, you're right. You've been on this for weeks. You want them to get a shooter. We've talked last week all about Kyle Korver, played in Philadelphia before, has NBA Finals experience, but he is out right now with an injured toe. It's an injury he's had before. He is older. He's not quite the sharpshooter he was a little earlier in his career. Do you think that he is the one they need to go after?
Are we talking about Korver? Yes, I absolutely think. I mean, Ben Simmons is a jump shot away from being a LeBron James type player, right? And he's a great playmaker. You add somebody like Jimmy Butler, and the way Joel Embiid plays, you have J.J. Redick, if you could put him in that starting lineup, and have another shooter out there with these guys, a veteran player like Kyle Korver. I mean, that right there enhanced their chances of becoming, one of these top two, top three teams in the Eastern Conference because, I mean, you have three solid, great players surrounded by shooting. I mean, that's where this league is at right now. You have to have shooting in your lineup with these great players. If you don't have that, I don't care how great these three guys are. If you don't have anybody that can spread the floor, because Ben Simmons is not a shooter, right? So you got to have shooting in with these guys.
And I would argue that if you look at Kyle Korver's numbers in Cleveland, it's a little misleading because of all the turmoil and tumult that those lineups and that franchise has had. So I'm with you 1,000%. I'm all in on Kyle Korver.
And you'd give, I mean, they do. The Sixers have
assets.
Have draft
picks,
I'm sure that Cleveland is trying to hold a little ransom here, knowing that Kyle's a perfect fit for that.
Right, but they're rebuilding. We know that about Cleveland. So draft picks make sense for them as opposed to actual bodies.
Let's talk about Markelle Fultz. Well, he looked, let's say, uncomfortable at the free throw line last night. In the second quarter, Fultz essentially pump faked. Is that what we should call it, Trace, before getting the shot up? And this is what Markelle said afterward. I mean, the ball slipped out of my hand, so I had to do what I had to do. You are a shooter, Tracy?
I don't know. I don't know what to make of this.
Has the ball ever slipped out of your hand while shooting a free throw?
No, never. This.
I am not a professional basketball player. I am asking the professional basketball player.
I hate to do this because I love this guy. He's one of my best teammates. Yeah, I'm not talking about Markelle, but this reminds me of my old teammate. I don't know what Chuck Hayes went through, but this. I remember this game like it was yesterday. Chuck Hayes was up there shooting a free throw by himself, and Allen Iverson yelled out when he shot, "Man, that's a travel!" I didn't want to laugh because Chuck is my teammate, but that was so funny, man. I was like, yo, don't do my man.
Especially because AI's saying it. Traveled every time.
And he yelled it out loud, like, "Hey, man, that's a travel!" But I don't know. Something psychological is really going on with this kid and his shooting. I don't know what to make of this.
I'll tell you what, it breaks my heart. And it is I mean, what you just said was funny. This is not. And, you know, over the summer, I think it got lost a little bit in the shuffle. Markelle Fultz tweeted out a very poignant tweet regarding mental health being no joke. I spent a lot of time writing about this, researching this. I really hope that there's some way. I hope he's talking to somebody about it, because there's no shame in that. I think we've made that all clear now. And this, to me, is something that just is painful to watch. Everybody, I really feel like everybody's rooting for him.
That's
even
the
the
thing.
opponent.
I was going to say, he's so popular inside the
malice.
locker room
there's
in
no malice.
Philadelphia. I feel like even the people who are saying, oh, I don't know, that doesn't look good, want him to succeed. Nobody wants to see a guy who's drafted
It's
number one
heartbreaking to
overall
watch.
and embarrassed like
you don't
that.
know what that could lead to, especially because there's so much pressure being drafted number one in this league. And to have him going through this at such a young age, you don't want that type of pressure on this kid.